So, welcome everyone. We've had a little bit of technical difficulties today, but we're getting this show on the road. I'd like to welcome everyone. My name is Rocky Campbell. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the Associate Vice President of Student Engagement and Experiential Learning here at Lewis and Clark College. I've worked at LC for 10 years in a variety of roles and was an undergraduate student here many, many years before that. This year, I have the privilege of working with my wonderful colleagues in student engagement, Mary and Gabby, to welcome you to Lewis and Clark. We're here to ease the transition to college life and help prepare you to make the most of your LC experience. As you venture out in this transformative journey, I offer the following advice. Prepare when you can, take care of yourself and learn what you need to succeed. Be open to the people, ideas, and opportunities around you and challenge yourself, even if you think you might fail. It's how we grow. Today is the first of our 5 summer webinars for new students that will touch on some of these themes. Today we'll be discussing living on campus. Future webinars will address student accessibility, health and well-being, finances, and academics and course registration. You've taken one of the first steps in preparing for college experience by either attending or listening to this webinar. So, a win for all of you. One of the best things about attending a residential liberal arts college, in my mind, is the sheer amount of opportunities there are for exploration and experiential learning. Your learning and growth occurs both inside and outside of the classroom. Personally, I know that some of my most foundational college memories and experiences were in the residence halls. Um, those folks I still consider some of my closest friends today. We celebrated each other's accomplishments. We supported each other in some of our own setbacks. And we really pushed each other a little bit outside of our comfort zones to experiencing things that were new, whether those were ideas, things, situations, and spent a lot of time thinking about our futures together. And now it's my privilege to turn this webinar over to Francesca Span to help talk a little bit about what living on campus at Lewis and Clark will mean for you.
Thank you so much to First Year Experience, Rocky, Mary, and Gabby for having me here. My name is Francesca Span. I'm the Assistant Director of Campus Living here at Lewis and Clark College. Similar to Rocky, I'm an alum of the institution. I've spent many formative years living in the residential halls, and I have stuck around and now work in the central office, assisting students with their housing needs and maintaining our operational needs on the residential side of campus. For today, I have prepared a slideshow to walk you through what the summer looks like and what you can expect when it comes to preparing your housing application for our office and getting ready for your arrival on campus in August. Before I get going, just a visual cue that everyone can see my screen correctly. Beautiful. Great. Okay. So for today's agenda, I'm going to go over some of the important dates that you need to keep in mind, information about the housing application. I'll go over our living learning communities here on campus, talk about move-in, and then share with you all some of the frequently asked questions that we receive from new students and answer any that might pop up in the chat. Okay. I already did my introduction. Again, my name is Fran, and just at the top of this webinar, if you have any lingering questions or think that you might have a more detailed request specific to you and your housing needs, feel free to send any of those along to the Living account, just living at lclark.edu. We are here all summer long. We have students living with us on campus over the summer, and we are always around to answer questions and support you in your application process. Jumping right into some important dates, I want to call your attention to the fact that the housing application has already been open for about 2 weeks now. Our housing application is on our housing portal and it is self-paced for you to do. I would say start to finish, it's about a 20-minute application process where you're learning more about our housing offerings, sharing information about you to our office, and of course, signing that housing contract. In addition to the application opening, we also opened up our Living Learning applications. I'll talk more about that soon, as well as the Office of Student Accessibility opened up their formal process for housing accommodations. The first year experience will be hosting a webinar similar to this one with members of the Office of Student Accessibility to talk about the process of both residential and academic accommodations. June 1st is going to be the closing date for the Living Learning community applications, so get those in if you haven't already. The links to those applications are also found on our housing portal. Our housing application, as well as the deadline for accommodations, is mid-June. We will close down the application formally in mid-June to start working on assignments. If you do not get your application in by that time, we will still keep it open for you. It just means that some of your preferences might not be able to be taken into account. And the roommate group building portal, where you can see other LC students entering into the fall, will also be closed. So please keep in mind that if you know where you want to live or who you want to live with, it really is in your best interest to get everything in by that June 15th deadline. But if you're a transfer student coming in a little bit later in this process, we will still house you. We do have our 2-year, 4-semester residency requirement for our incoming first years who are not within our commuter student status. From mid-June through the month of July, Campus Living works on assigning residents to rooms and buildings on campus, and we plan on sharing out your official housing assignment, including a roommate and any other information you might need to know in early August. Sometimes we do get it out in late July, but early August is a good time to plan on hearing back from our office about your official placement. We do also open up a wait list in case you maybe got into your second or third favorite option and are hoping to put your name down for a different building preference alongside a roommate or a friend. On the other side of receiving your housing placement emails, we have some more information for you to consider when it comes to the arrival to campus. If you are a student athlete participating in something like speech and debate or any other type of early arrival group, you're likely going to hear far more information about your early arrival to campus from that campus partner. So please make sure that you are staying in contact with your program contact. But generally speaking, right around mid-August is when we expect our fall athletes to arrive early or members of other groups with some type of early arrival program. For our new students who are participating on an NST, when you arrive to campus for your NST, College Outdoors will store your items for you, and then you will actually have access to your room and your room key on the 26th, which is a Wednesday, when you return from your new student trip. You will not have access to your room or building prior to your return from the NST, so please do keep that in mind, but there is storage for you. Students who are not arriving early with a program or participating on an NST will be moving into their residential rooms on the first day of new student orientation, which is Thursday, August 27th this year. And so we will be here welcoming you to campus, preparing for your arrival, and then later that day, you jump right into orientation programming. That weekend, we do have our returning residents moving into campus, so that is when you can expect the halls to fill up right before students jump into their fall semester schedules. Just a few other dates on here, although these are noted on our housing calendar and in various other places, but I just have some notes about fall break. That is going to be October 8th through the 11th. We do keep the halls open. Same with Thanksgiving break, the 25th through the 27th. The halls remain open as well. And then we do close the halls over the winter break. If you are planning on needing lodging on campus over the winter break, please make sure to fill out your applications for that in November. There is an additional fee for winter break housing, but we do permit students who apply to remain on campus with us over the winter break? Okay. Diving into just some more specifics about the housing application to make sure that you are able to access the application itself. This is just to note that all of our applications are submitted through our housing portal. If you're having any issues accessing the housing portal, please feel free to send an email over to us directly. Sometimes students who aren't able to access it just have too many cookies on their web browser. We have found that either deleting your cookies or trying a different browser is usually the biggest reason why students are having troubles logging in, followed by typing in their password incorrectly. So just keep that in mind as you try and access the housing portal. It is the one-stop shop for all things housing application related. A few other reminders about accessing the housing portal in general. You do have to have your lclark.edu email created, and you have to give yourself about 24 hours after the creation of that email to log into the portal. That's just based on how the IT systems talk to each other and load your data into our database. It's about 20 to 30 minutes to complete your housing application. We do suggest you carve out that time and fill it out in um, one session rather than trying to start and come back to it, just so you get all of your housing information as accurate as possible. And then finally, we do have a lot of how-to guides on our website. We can also send them to you via email if you have any questions about how to build a roommate group or just navigating some of the more minutia aspects of our housing portal. This is just a screenshot if you are trying to find either those guides or a link to our housing portal. This is where you can stop on our website under applying for housing, incoming students. We do have a timeline. This is a screenshot from last year. Our timeline is updated for this year. And then on that right-hand accordion, you can see where we have some guides and then a link directly to the housing portal. I've gone over this before, but again, the housing application itself is full of a lot of content about how we host students on campus, what you can expect from campus living, what we expect from our residents. You'll fill out information about your housing preferences, your identity, your roommate preferences, signing the contract, forming a roommate group, which is totally optional. We get asked that a lot. Should I build a roommate group? Am I required to? The answer is it is up to you. We do, encourage students who have a lot of perhaps some anxiety about roommate groups or a lot of things that they're looking for in a roommate to participate in that process to give themselves a good opportunity to see what's out there. But for some students who are more open to us taking that process into our hands and pairing you up, again, that choice is up to you. And then finally, after you have completed most steps of the application, we do ask you to select a meal plan. Students can change their meal plan up until 5 p.m. on the first Friday of the semester. And for fall, that is going to be Friday, September 4th, which I believe is also the same day as the student engagement fair. So it's a big day to remember to get some things in to our office and participate with events on campus. Okay, just a note about roommates. As I said, it's totally up to you, but if you are looking to create a roommate group, there are a few different ways that you can build that roommate group out numbers wise. We have rooms that primarily our rooms on campus are going to be doubles and quads. We do have a couple of triple rooms, although those are fairly low in number. So if you are trying to live in a triple, you really should try and build a roommate group. We will do our best to keep roommate groups of 3 together, but otherwise, roommate groups are 2 people or 4 people big. Um, just a note while we're here, if you're looking for a single room, first year students are not eligible for single rooms. Those are not something that we put first years in unless they have an accommodation for a single room. So please do keep that in mind and expect to have a roommate as a first year student. It really is part of the experience being a college student is to navigate having a roommate and having someone there during your first year as you um, just get more comfortable living on a college campus. We do suggest as you go through the roommate group building to keep in mind that if you're not seeing a ton of options, there's still a few weeks before the portal closes for the roommate group building. So come back. That is definitely a part of the application that you can return to after the fact, regardless of completing the other portion of your housing application. And so if you're not seeing anyone who really feels like a perfect or not perfect, but good fit for you as a roommate, just head back into the roommate group builder in the portal. Okay, I'm going to take one sip of water and pause really quick and then dive into some information about accommodations. Okay, I mentioned accommodations a little bit earlier. Accommodations are for students who have either a disability related or faith-based related housing need, depending on which uh, is true for you, we would either send you to the Office of Student Accessibility or the Center for Spiritual Life for them to follow up and learn more about your accommodation needs. They meet with you, and if you are approved on their end for an accommodation, they send that information over to our office, and then we work on a placement that would meet your accommodation needs. A few things to keep in mind is that in working with those two offices isn't a guarantee of an accommodation, but it is going to be the pathway that would allow you to work on an accommodation. And they are truly the ones who assess where your needs are and then write up that language. I do have a few examples of some of the accommodations that we see come through specifically for residential accommodations. These are anything like an ADA accessible room or a room without stairs to access, a single room, like I mentioned before, a room that has some type of visual fire alarm installed in the space, or even accommodations more so related to the restrooms. Faith-based wise, we see access to something like a pork-free kitchen or access to one of our decompression rooms for prayer to be on the faith-based side of those accommodations. Again, the deadline to get those accommodations in and guarantee a placement into accommodation housing is June 15th. If you have an accommodation need that comes up after the 15th or into your time here at Lewis and Clark post move-in, we do urge you to work with those offices on your accommodation needs, and then you would be added to our OSA and spiritual life waitlist, and we would reach out to you if and when a room that meets your accommodation needs becomes available. A note about meal plans. Meal plans are required for all of our on-campus residents, and we do have a few different options for our first-year students to choose from. Those options are our 14 flex, and our 19 meal plan. And the difference between those plans is based on how many meals you are receiving throughout a week and or if you want some flex points. Our dining hall, we have two of them. One is called Fields Dining Hall, the other is the Trail Room. A meal swipe can be used at either location, and under the 14 plans, you get 14 meals a week. During Monday through Friday, this means 2 out of 3 of the meals and getting brunch and dinner on the weekends. The 19 meal plan means that you're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner Monday through Friday, and again, eating those 2 meals, brunch and dinner on the weekends. And then if you're someone who really enjoys coffee or quick snacks and things like that, the flex points that you get with the 14 flex plan can be used at the market, the Dovecote and the Trail Room for coffee and snacks and things like that. The 14 Flex plan is, in fact, our most popular plan, and it is the one that I usually suggest to an incoming student who's still learning what their food schedule looks like and is maybe trying to supplement their meals with snacks and easy grab and go things that they can bring with them to class. As I mentioned earlier, meal plans can be changed up until Friday, September 4th, and you can always change your meal plan for the spring semester if after a full semester in the fall you realize maybe you were hungrier than expected and the 19 plan is what you are looking for. Your housing portal and application is where you will make that meal plan selection. And if you don't make a meal plan selection, we will default you to the 14 Flex plan. Okay, diving into living learning communities. We have a few different living learning communities here in our residential halls. These are different locations within our residential buildings that provide students with an experience related to a topic or a special interest. And programming in those halls is facilitated by the resident advisor and relates to those shared interests that the residents have. We have a few different LLCs that are eligible for first year students. We do have one that is not first year student eligible and one that does not have a physical location. I'll get into those in just a moment. But the LLCs for new students include Global Languages and Cultures. This is in Howard Hall and gets students really involved with both speaking different languages and interacting with different cultures. We have Outdoor Pursuits, which is, of course, for those who are really interested in outdoors. There is a partnership with the College Outdoors office, and this is in Alder Hall. We have Environmental Action in Manzanita. Students who are interested in eco defense and or any other type of green initiatives have a big overlap with environmental action. Visual and Performing Arts is in our Platt West Hall and floors. There is a huge emphasis on everything and anything visual arts and a connection to both the Arts at LC program and our residential art studio space called the Plateau. We have holistic wellness, which is, of course, related to anything mind, body, and spiritual practices. Holistic wellness is in Copeland, and I believe it's in the B wing. There's many wings in Copeland. Same with Aspiring Educators. Aspiring Educators is also in Copeland Hall. There is a connection to our Graduate School of Teaching program. And if you are interested in a future as an educator, this is really a great LLC for you. And then finally, we have social change, which is exactly what it sounds like. Students who are interested in participating in social justice topics gravitate towards social change. There's a partnership with the Center for Social Change here at Lewis and Clark, and that LLC is located in Aiken Hall. The two LLCs that are not here on the screen, the first is our Travel Lounge Living Learning Community. That's in Stewart Hall, and that program is meant more so for our students who are going to an overseas program or returning from an overseas program. And then we also have our Launchpad program, which is catered more towards our junior and senior students who are preparing for life post-grad and what it means to live on your own, apply for jobs, and really start that post-undergraduate experience. Um, as you can see here, the LLCs have an application open right now. You can apply on our housing portal. If you're not certain about living specifically in an LLC, we will be opening up an out-of-house membership option so you can receive information about the programming, even if you're not someone living physically within the hall. And then just a quick note that VAPA is one of our most popular living learning communities and can't necessarily allow you to pull in a roommate the way that if you were accepted into Outdoor Pursuits, for example, and your roommate wasn't, you could always ask your roommate if they would like to join you in that LLC. So that's just a note is if you're really excited about VAPA, we either suggest you find someone else who has applied to live in VAPA or urge your roommate to submit a VAPA application if they're interested in that as well. Our living learning communities will maintain that open out of house membership. So after you get to campus, if you decide you really do want to participate in a certain LLC, you will have that opportunity to apply for out of house membership after the fact. Okay, I'm going to take one more sip of water and then we are going to jump into move in. All right. Move-in is a big day here on campus, And we actually have a few different move-in dates, as you probably could tell when I went over the important dates at the start of this presentation. The first year experience office is going to send you some more details about what to bring to campus and what to not bring to campus. There is always a need to bring and stock your residential hall room with items. And I would say that we do have access to quite a few different communal goods or things that are maybe just not as practical or necessary in a residential hall. And so keep your eyes peeled for the communication from FYE with information about those resources. They do also have that information linked on their website. As I mentioned earlier, we do have fall athletics arriving early and other early arrival programs. Follow up with your coach or program director for more details about your anticipated arrival. Again, for NST participants, you will move in the day that your NST arrives on campus, which is a Wednesday this year. And as I mentioned before, you won't have access to your room until that arrival day. Some students ask when their parents, family, or friends should come and help them move in. If they want to and they're in the area, they're certainly welcome to assist you on Wednesday, but just keep in mind that official programming for parents, family, and friends won't start until the following day. And so that's just something to keep in mind. And I do understand how sometimes scheduling with family from out of town can be a little bit tricky. It is my understanding that the College Outdoors trip leaders and office does help students collect their stuff from storage and get their stuff moved over to their halls. So you're not just there to try and move some things over from storage. All right. Rounding out some of the prepared information that I have for you all here today are just some reminders about campus living in general. It is not just me who works in this office. There's other central staff here with me, the director, Teresa, our admin assistant, Megan. We have a graduate student who will be joining us for the fall, and then four full-time area directors who are professional staff members who oversee buildings and the RA staff and make sure everyone is happy and healthy while they live on campus. And between the nine of us, someone is always around to answer questions and help out. If you ever have a question, regardless of the housing application, a future housing need, an inquiry about quite literally anything residential, you can always send living@lclark.edu an email. That is our preferred communication path. It helps us send you links via email and just stay on top of things. You can give us a call here at 503-768-8123. And we are here Monday through Friday during the summer. During the academic year, we are open 7 days a week. Our hours are on our website. If you're trying to visit us over the summer or even into the academic year, you can find us in the Odell Annex. We are right across from Fowler Student Center, and we're pretty easy to find. Just go up the stairs and you'll see our neon sign of our logo. Um, as I mentioned before, we do have that 7 day a week open office. And so, again, if you have any issues once you arrive to campus, we are here to help out and make sure that someone is there to follow up on a work order or answer any questions about something like a vacuum rental or whatever else might pop up. And we do really want to be collaborative when it comes to your needs. One thing I will let you all know is that once the school year does start, FERPA, which is a federal law, kicks in, and it is tricky for us to do communication with parents or folks that are not the student specifically because of those federal laws. So this is just me passing along that note that we do really want students to be self-advocates and come to us when they need something. It's easier for us to talk and give them information about their own housing situation. And it's also just a great way to practice self-advocacy and taking those steps towards being an independent adult. All right, I am now going to open up to Q&As.
Fran, we have a couple of questions that have come in to the chat for you. I'll start with the first one. If a student applies to two LLCs, um, how do they indicate their first choice preference?
That's a good question. So we have a slightly new process this summer for the applications because we have moved them into different forms. There should be a multi-choice or somewhere in your application where you could specify a note that one is your top choice. If you don't really have a preference, our staff members who oversee the LLC committee will make a decision as to which LLC they would like you placed in based off of the quality of your housing app or your LLC application. If you're quite worried about it, I would say you can also send us an email and we can forward it over to the LLC committee so that they can make a note about your preference between those.
And I guess, based on that, the follow-up question would be like, how does housing determine which community they would be placed in, or who gets placed into a living learning community?
Yes, I would say that more times than not, if you were to apply to one LLC and you had a good application, you would be allowed into that living learning community. Things get a little bit more complicated if you apply for VAPA and you don't have a very strong VAPA LLC, just because that living learning community year after year tends to be our most desired application. So for anyone looking to live in VAPA, really do spend some time submitting a high quality application to ensure that you put yourself in the best position for that application to be approved. Otherwise, for our other ones, we are looking for, of course, high quality applications, but there tends to be uh, um, about an equal number of open beds to residents who apply compared to kind of the skewed ratio of the VAPA LLCs. And some of that is just based off of the actual size of plat and how many beds we do have available after our returning residents apply for VAPA.
Another tip someone is looking for is like, would you recommend that students only apply to their top choice from a living learning community, or is it better to apply to multiple LLCs? Would either strategy maybe increase their chances of being placed in one?
That's a really good question. I think that they should apply to top choices or ones that they would actually be excited about living in rather than just applying for the sake of living in a or submitting multiple LLC applications. There's always that opportunity for out of house membership where you could dip your toes into the topics and participate in programs if you're more tied to a certain building, but maybe interested in that programming. That would give you a really good way of experiencing living in a hall, but also having the invites to programs that you're still like seeing how much you have a draw towards those. But yeah, I would say stick to like one or two high quality applications rather than planning on submitting to every one.
Okay. If someone maybe learned something by watching this webinar and wanted to update their LLC preferences after submitting their application, how might they be able to do that?
Totally. Just send us an email. I'll get that over to the LLC committee and let them know about that preference. And then we can go from there. If you've already submitted things, there's not really a way for us to reverse that application.
Great. I have a couple of non LLC questions for you. First, I'm gonna go with the general one. What is the best way, do you think, for people to meet someone and find a roommate this early when they're not on campus?
Great question. So there's a few different ways. I would say that the first on that roommate group building portal, it does allow you ways to filter and kind of select by the way that someone's answered or trying to get to know other folks. That's always a really good method. The other option that I also see a lot of students is kind of the reverse, is they meet people on social media or different incoming LC student groups. They connect there. And then from there, they work on sending each other a link to join their roommate groups, and that's how they form a roommate. Um, I don't know if Gabby maybe has some insight if you know how your friends, when they started LC, if they kind of started on the portal and then started talking offline, or if they met in kind of like social media sites and then formed roommate groups in the portal.
Yeah, definitely. One advantage that we had was the Lewis and Clark class of 2027 for my class. Now is Lewis and Clark College class of 2030. Sorry. I'm too old now. But the this group help because you can see other people's posts and how they are. You can see who they are and what things they liked. So multiple of us got in contact by using that Instagram account. Um, and I will definitely recommend it because you can interact with other people in a close way. Um, and I found out that multiple of my friends actually did the roommates room groups using the Instagram account. So yeah.
Yeah, I get the sense that given kind of current use of social media, and just accessibility to kind of chatting with people and getting to know who they are, and those different social media sites tends to be, I think, a pretty popular way. Or even when students have met each other at admitted students preview days or different meetups before coming to Lewis and Clark is some of the more popular ways that people find their roommates and then send them the link.
I think I have one last question that was posed to us, which was follow up on your information about meal plans. And maybe if you could clarify how people might add flex points during the semester, whether that's an individual or maybe a parent. What's the process for doing that, and where should they go to make those changes?
That is a really good question. So, one of the meal plans that I mentioned earlier is the 14 Flex, which automatically comes with Flex points, but there definitely is a way to either add additional Flex points or just purchase more as the semester goes on. And that is going to be directly with Bon Appetit. They have their own office in Fowler Student Center. So if you either use all your flex points or maybe you chose the 19 meal plan, but you want to buy some flex points, you can do so directly with them at their office. They would work with charging you for those flex points and then loading them onto your card. And we see students kind of, because that process works outside of our office, that's something that Bon Appetit tracks with them separately.
Okay, great. I think we've had the opportunity to answer all the questions that came in the chat. Um, I guess I'll just leave it open here, Fran. Are there any other tips that you might have for incoming first students when it comes to housing or anything else on campus?
Yes, I definitely do. I have a little bit of my here. I will also see if I can stop sharing my um screen, but I do see some of these questions kind of come up year after year throughout the summer. The first is mini fridges. Students ask about what the process is for a mini fridge. Do they need one? Something that makes Lewis and Clark Res Halls a bit unique is that we do have communal kitchens on just about every floor. Students are welcome to use them. There are full-size fridges. It is a store at your own personal risk. If you keep things in the fridge, we suggest you label them, but you are keeping items in a communal fridge with a lot of other folks who might be less frequently checking if their food is getting a little soggy in the fridge. So just keep that in mind. But if you would like your own mini fridge in your room, you're certainly welcome to either bring your own or rent through a service that we partner with called My Mini Fridge, My Micro Fridge. And we will send out links to students when we send out housing assignments, and you can rent that. It's actually a pretty cool unit. It has a mini fridge, a little mini freezer unit, which is perfect for like a couple pints of ice cream, and then a mini microwave. There are microwaves in our communal fridges, but sometimes you really need that bag of popcorn and you're already cozy in your bed, and it is nice to heat up. Those get delivered by the mini fridge service and then taken away at the end of the academic year as well. So mini fridges are a pretty big one. I think one of the other frequently asked questions that we get is about shipping items to campus. We do have a mail service on our campus, and every student will be given their own MSC number, kind of similar to what a PO box does for you. Everything comes to the college's address, but you're able to specify you as an individual for receiving packages. And mail service and MSC information will be sent out to all undergraduates sometime over the summer with a partnership from the first year experience in the mail services office. They do ask that you don't send items to the college campus until mid to late August, just because there's limited storage for a lot of big, bulky packages. And we do request that you hold off on sending too much. I will also mention this is usually something that perks the ears up of a Californian is that Oregon does not have sales tax. So rather than buying and sending a lot of stuff up here to Oregon, we do suggest you hold off and purchase it while you're in state, stimulate the state economy, but also maybe just not have to haul and pay for shipping and get a little break on some taxes. The other things that we have are usually questions about bikes and laundry. So, laundry service on campus is included in the cost of your room and board, as is Wi-Fi, as is utilities. Laundry service will be available in the halls. It is at no charge to you. Any load of laundry you want to do is just free. And so please do a ton of laundry when you're here living on campus. We really love to see you do a lot of laundry. We have laundry facilities in every single building, multiple in some buildings as well, washer, dryers, and usually a lot of those spaces also have like a large sink so you can do some washing of maybe something that gets a little grimy in some of the Portland rain. Bicycles are also welcome and allowed on campus. We have both indoor and outdoor bike storage. We also recently, within the last year and a half, 2 years, have e-bike storage and places for you to properly charge your e-bikes. So do please keep that in mind. We do live on a pretty hilly campus, and so if you're maybe new to biking, you might find an e-bike to really help you navigate the hills of Southwest Portland. In addition to bikes, the next thing that comes up to people is just transportation in general. FYE, are you doing a specific transportation webinar?
We are not.
No worries. Then what I will say is check out the transportation and parking website. They really do have a lot of resources, whether that's getting a TriMet bus pass and using the Portland public transit system, which is really great. As a student here, I was using the TriMet all the time and using the discounted tickets through parking and transportation. There is, of course, the Otter bus. It takes students to Fred Meyer and other places in Portland. Check out that bus route. That is free to Lewis and Clark College students. And then finally, one of the other big questions is what about my car? First year students are not eligible for a car. In addition to just like some limited space, we do really want first year students to be engaging with their peers on campus and utilizing the college resources and the Portland resources as well. So unless you have a specific need, you are welcome to reach out to parking and transportation for an exemption to that. Otherwise, you can bring your car to campus your second year here as a sophomore. There's a ton more that I could go into, and I'm sure that you have other specific questions. And so, if you do have anything that comes up, please, again, just feel free to reach out to Living at L. Clark or, of course, the first year experience. And if they can't answer it or we can't answer it, we will absolutely send you over to the office or department that can give you the best resources. And like I said, we're here all summer and we are anticipating your arrival. I think that's what I got.
Hey, well, that was a lot of information, Fran. Thanks so much for those final tips and tricks. I know that I would find them very useful if I were an incoming student. I know that I was listening. I think, the one thing I always tell parents about renting the mini fridge as well as students is you don't have to find a place for it to go over the summer. And
Correct.
we tend to gather a lot of things during our time here on campus, and having to return them home or find a storage unit in the summer is something that's very difficult. So that's a big advantage of being able to rent those fridges instead of buying them. But without any more questions, I don't see anything more in the chat. I think we're going to end today's session, and we look forward to seeing you in a future session.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, FYE.
Thank you.